Hi there, and welcome to the Explaining History Patreon page. In this series of videos, I'm going to do one a day, or at least every couple of days, that's the plan. We're going to start off by looking at Ronald Reagan, about the presidency of Ronald Reagan, about the political origins of Ronald Reagan, and the ideas that he represented. Ronald Reagan is a hugely controversial figure. He has as many supporters as he has detractors. We're going to try to transcend a little bit the kind of hero worship stroke character assassination of Reagan. We're going to try to understand the historical processes, the changes that had to happen in order for a figure like him to inhabit the White House. Now, one of the ideas that we're going to look at in the next few sessions that defines the Reagan presidency is the question of government, its role, its size, its funding, how Reagan believed governments should be funded and how much they should be funded by, and the question of taxation, the question of how much of an individual's wealth the individual should retain, and ultimately what the relationship between the state and the individual actually was. Ronald Reagan's point of view, his point of view in that of a growing number of members of the Republican Party by the time he became president in 1980, was that government should play an increasingly smaller role in the lives of individuals. This is not a new idea when it comes to American history. The Republic was founded on this very question of the removal of tyranny, in the case of George III, and the rights of states to determine their future and determine their individual policies. There had been always a kind of a vein of thought, a kind of a current of thought in America that the states should have a limited amount of power, and in most instances the federal government had too much. So why by 1980 had this had this idea found its way to the White House? Well, to understand that, you need to rewind to 1964. Okay, so 1964 saw the biggest landslide victory for any president in the 20th century, and that was for Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson, whilst fighting the Vietnam War, believed that the role of government could be enhanced to such an extent that the Great Society, his big packages of social reforms, could transform America, still a kind of a deeply unequal society in the mid-1960s with huge pockets of poverty and inequality, particularly along racial lines, that America could be transformed by the power of the state. And by 1966, the prospects of Lyndon Johnson being successful in this, because of the pressures of the Vietnam War, because of the limits to what states can actually achieve, started to unravel the whole process. And we'll go into this a little bit deeper later on. This is just a kind of an overview for today. Lyndon Johnson had beaten a figure rather similar to Ronald Reagan in his outlook in 1964. He'd beaten a politician called Barry Goldwater, who again preached the idea of individualism, of a limited state, of low taxes, what we would call a kind of right-wing libertarianism these days, of which there's a significant amount in American politics. And Goldwater had been resoundingly defeated. Part of the problem that Barry Goldwater had wasn't that his ideas were necessarily unpopular in certain parts of America, particularly California. His ideas were quite interesting to American taxpayers. It's the fact that Goldwater himself was a personally highly dislikable character. He did not have the charm of figures such as Reagan or Bill Clinton or Barack Obama, and wasn't able to build a support base in quite the same way. Ronald Reagan had these low tax, small government, low regulation ideas and beliefs, and the belief that government itself was a problem and needed to be rolled back from the lives of individuals, that government somehow, excessive government somehow represented tyranny. But he had personal charm and charisma. He had something likeable that American voters would eventually see and be attracted to. And we'll continue this story tomorrow, and we'll look a little bit more about Reagan's beliefs and the ideas and thinkers who influenced him. I hope you found this useful. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.